All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller. I'm here almost every Wednesday. Almost every Wednesday, I'm here to help you develop in your career. And I love taking all kinds of questions, anything from resume building to interviewing. And my favorites are managing questions for when you've got a team or when you are building a business. I love that stuff. But anything's fair game. Any question that you have regarding your career is welcome. I will tie it back to emotional intelligence as that's my expertise. And there's a few ways that you can engage. So you can hop on Zoom with me directly. I love it when you do that because I get to work with you directly. But if that doesn't work, that's fine. You can always type your questions into the comment section. Type your questions into the comment section, and I will do my best to get back to you that way. If you notice that as I'm addressing your question through the comment section, if I'm not on point for you, if I'm not going in the direction that's helpful for you, just let me know. Just type in some more. So I'm going to be sharing today about where things break down in business, in the kind of unconscious ways and ways that you might not think of immediately. So what are the real reasons that people get stuck? I don't know. Maybe real reasons isn't the way to say it. What are the unseen ways that people get stuck? What are the ways that people kind of get in their own way? So a lot of founders and leaders will reach a point where they are struggling with developing, is what they've done so far in building their business has got them there. But obviously, if they're going to grow, they're going to have to change. They're going to have to do things differently. And what are the blocks that get in the way of that? I mean, we could sum it up real quick and say, avoiding the fear of change is a big thing. And how does that happen? You know, I look at the things that I put off doing because it's something new, and I have anxiety about it because I haven't done it before, and so I'm taking some kind of a risk, and that's what it's going to take. And am I aware of what the risks are that I need to take? Because I can always just keep working harder, but can I work in a way that is actually easier, takes less effort, but may be uncomfortable at first? So that's what I want to look at today is what are the ways that we get in our own way as we are developing. So if you're getting to a spot in your company where you are finding that you are doing too many of the tasks and you know that you need to bring somebody on, and yet you keep putting it off, what do you make of that? What's going on there? For a lot of people, they are avoiding fear. I know that that's something I certainly did. I talk about how I reluctantly started my own coaching business. I had been working for years in an organization, and I had no plan of leaving. I wanted to make that work. And when we decided to close the organization, I looked at other opportunities, other things I could get into. But I ultimately said, okay, wait, I'm going to really lean in. I'm going to friend my fear and start my own business instead of trying to work for somebody else. So now, as I'm in my business for the last 18 months and I've got things that are working, but now how do I go to the next level? Well, some of that is public speaking, is doing more speaking events. I feel afraid of that. I notice right now have been avoiding, I'm trying to perfect an email that I'm sending out as a follow-up thing. And it's so funny that I'm doing it this way when I know that I'm avoiding the fear, right? The thing that I benefit from in this is that I know I'm doing it. Like I can see the ways I'm doing it. And so it doesn't become a thing that I put off too long. And if I really need, I will call somebody and say, hey, I just need to talk this through. I just need to kind of talk into this and help motivate myself to move forward on this. Or I might call somebody and ask some questions to get a little more clarity for myself. But so there I'm using that fear as a guide to help keep me moving towards the things that I want in my life, in my career. So the important thing that I want to bring to the table is that emotional patterns are always running the show. So as much as I consider myself to be logical, the reality is that I am mostly justifying whatever decisions I've already made, and those decisions I'm making from an emotional space. So when you've got somebody who's working for you or that you're working for or yourself, and you're noticing stuck points, you're noticing how you're not moving forward, it helps to be aware of what you're feeling. Because if I'm avoiding, if I'm feeling scared, but I don't want to feel that fear, then I'm putting a lot of effort into not feeling what's right there for me to feel. It's not about, I don't have to be confident first. I need to lean in and do it. I need to lean in and have the conversations. I need to lean in and make the mistakes. I reached out to somebody today and it was a mistake. They can't help me. And you know, but it was worth me doing just because it affirmed me, just because it was me taking action. And I kind of assumed it, but I said, you know, let me make sure that this person can help me. And who knows, in the future they may actually be able to. So in developing strategy is really important. Having a business plan is absolutely important, because if you don't have it, you're going to move a lot slower. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have set markers, things that you're moving towards, you have no way of really addressing and really knowing how you're doing. So I'm not suggesting that anybody throw that stuff out, but it's to look at where the blocks are. Because the real bottlenecks that happen aren't because of not having strategy, but it tends to be because of suppressed emotion. So, you know, if there's a block in a business, oftentimes a key decision maker is not making a decision, that they are afraid and they are avoiding their own discomfort and they're not making a decision. So if you can identify that person, and if that person is you, then what can you do about that? How can you appropriately address your fear? Is it going to be talking to somebody? Is it going to just biting the bullet and moving into it, taking the risk? Everybody's going to have a different response, but the common thing, the common pattern that happens is that people are avoiding the discomfort. And it can even happen in teams where key players, if somebody has the experience that they aren't being seen or acknowledged, they can start to build resentment about that. And so that can become an undercurrent in the meetings. And so people are not necessarily as efficient. It's like they basically want acknowledgement or attention, and it's not been happening. So is that something that you can just address and give acknowledgement and help kind of grease the wheels on that? If so, you might be able to move your team forward faster. But you have to be aware of your own feelings, your own insecurities, your own times that you feel hurt about not being acknowledged. You're going to have to let yourself feel that in order to be aware of other people's unmet affirmations. So where stuck points happen in organizations and in individuals, something that's really helpful to do is to acknowledge whatever the feeling is, whatever is happening that is upsetting, is to just be with it. There's all kinds of studies about how we make decisions before we're conscious of that decision. And we're often making those decisions simply to avoid some emotion. So if I can preemptively choose to feel the discomfort, choose to feel the emotion that my unconscious mind is trying to keep me from feeling, if I can say, wait, I notice I'm avoiding my fear, but I'm just going to let myself feel really afraid now. I'm going to let myself experience this fear that I'm trying to avoid. And it doesn't even have to be about the scenario that I'm in at work. It can just be any kind of fear that I let myself be with that fear. Well, then all of a sudden, the fear of that business meeting, the fear of that uncomfortable call that I need to make, whatever it is, all of a sudden that fear comes down. So it's a really cool strategy that you can use to just simply by allowing yourself to feel more and say, I'm going to feel more. The stuck points in your communications at work will start to lessen. And oh yes, I'm thinking of a client I'm working with right now who, as they have been allowing themselves to simply feel more, they now are not they're not kind of in a knee-jerk way trying to control the people that they're working with, because they would try to micromanage people around them because they didn't want to feel the discomfort of how other people did things. And now that they're choosing to let themselves experience more anxiety, say, oh, I'm feeling afraid. Now they're not unconsciously managing everybody around them. And it's the coolest thing because like they're not as tired. Like in coaching sessions, they're coming in like refreshed. When I first started working with them, they were haggard. They were always, stressing out over something. And to have them come in being more present and able to say, oh, here's the things that I was afraid of this week, and here's the thing I want to address in my coaching session with you today. It's quite different than at the beginning, where it's like they couldn't make up their mind. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They were avoiding their own fear. So now they're learning to use that fear as a light, as a guiding light in their life. Okay, so, well, wow, yeah, once I get going, so I can just talk. For anybody who is joining in, there's a few ways you can engage with me. Of course, I love it when you jump in directly here on Zoom, but be forewarned, it is being broadcast. So it's on LinkedIn Live and YouTube. If you don't want to jump in directly here on Zoom, you can always type your questions into the comment section, and I will do my best to answer your questions from the comment section. I've had a lot of fun with that, actually, the past few weeks. So go ahead and type any questions that you have in. Again, you don't have to try to stay on topic. If you don't have a question about leadership and ways that emotions or avoidance of emotions get in the way of growing your business, if that's not what you're thinking about right now, then any question that's on your heart is fine. Any question career related is fair game. Go ahead and type it into the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond to your question that way. So as you're thinking about any questions you have, there's a few ways that you can get in touch with me. Of course, you can join in here, Career Lab Wednesday. I'm here most weeks. But if you want to have a one-to-one conversation, that's great. You can set up a 15, 20-minute call with me. There's a link where you can get scheduled. And I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one. Often people get some clarity that they've been looking for just in that conversation. And if a coaching relationship is something that makes sense, we can discuss that there as well. I have many different pathways for people. I usually will start with a deep dive in a 9-session coaching package where people really come to understand themselves, what they think the world expects of them and what they expect of the world. And they are able to use that to navigate all kinds of communications at work, to negotiate the salary that they want, negotiate the work-life balance that they want. People, the number of clients that have been afraid they were going to lose their job, or thinking that maybe they didn't want to work at that company. And then as we work together for a little bit, they start to see that they have more power than they thought. They start to see ways that they have influence they didn't realize they had. So once you start being aware of the gifts that you already have, and you see ways you can leverage that immediately at work, and you go from being more of a passive agent where work is kind of being done to you, and you become more interactive and work begins to turn into play. So the number of clients who started off with this mentality of, oh yeah, work is a thing I have to do. I don't know, I'm kind of unsatisfied in this place, and where it turns into this wonderful life adventure for them. And that's the goal. I mean, that's what we set as the vision for you, is that whatever it is that you're doing, you're loving doing it. You're looking forward to your day. You're looking at the meetings that you have coming up, anticipating the challenges and saying, okay, all right, getting ready for this one. Here we go. This is an adventure. Notice the difference from, oh man, I'm really dreading this meeting coming up, is people, we move into that kind of drama and that dread when we don't understand ourselves, when we don't understand how we relate to the world. And so I start with people by really helping them understand themselves in the world. And from that, we can build on in all kinds of interesting collaborative ways. So that's a little bit more about me and my coaching process. Again, check out the link with me, set up a one-to-one with me. And I then also have what somebody refers to as emotional exposure groups. So these are great. Basically, if you're a leader and you're struggling at work to set expectations with people and hold people accountable, if you struggle with being a people pleaser and not being respected, these group environments are fantastic for you, because you will learn new behaviors and you will practice those new behaviors with other people. So you're not just reading about it. That's the difference in coaching and coaching groups is I can read and I can listen to YouTube videos. I can say, that's a great idea, but how often do I implement it? So that's another thing I do in coaching sessions is it's a lot of, whether it's a mock interview or just prepping, role playing for a conversation that somebody knows they're going to have. It's like, oh, wow, it feels good to say it that way. Oh, I hadn't thought of saying it that way. Yeah, that's risky, but I can see how this is going to work. I can see the difference this is going to make in this upcoming communication. So role playing is such a helpful way. It's like being kids, As kids, we pretend. That's how we prepare for whatever it is that we go on to do in life. Learning to play more as an adult is so important. I love working with people who have young kids because their child is their teacher. So I give people assignments where they're now interacting with their kid in a different way. And they find then that at work, they get different results. They become more effective in their communications at work because their kid is reteaching them how to play, is waking up that aliveness in. So some ideas there. Another thing that I'll get into here on this topic of the hidden reasons that people are stuck. I'll share a little bit more on that. I want to say again, though, that I invite you to ask questions. I love your questions. You're welcome to jump in here on Zoom or type your questions into the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them in the comment section. But I'm gonna start closing out here if I don't get any questions. But I want to talk about this other thing in ways, hidden ways that people get stuck in their career. So we have a mythology around pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We have a mythology of you just have to work harder and you'll get it. Now that's there's truth to that. Like there's a lot of ways that people can work harder. Like there are just things that people can do. The number one thing I see is that most people don't network enough. Most people avoid interacting. And I think it's gotten even harder since COVID and so much stuff is online. And it's like, there's so many emails and text messages and yada, yada, yada. So there are some simple things where it's just like, yeah, instead of watching a YouTube video, pick up the phone and call somebody, pick up the phone and text somebody. Like there's ways that you can just work harder that are smart. But at a certain point, it's not about working harder. At a certain point, you can't just push your way through. At a certain point, that doesn't work. I'll jump to Elon Musk on this one. An agenda is trying to drive an agenda, like the richest, one of the most powerful people on the planet has a vision, has a way that they want to do things and can push really hard at it. But it doesn't work if you're not able to win people over, if you're not able to inspire and influence. You can only go so far. So there's a time where listening closer is going to be more effective. We're developing more of the feminine power skills, being more attractive, inviting in. Those are skills that are going to be, that you're going to need to implement. And you may be even good at this and you might not know it's a skill of yours. That was true for me. When I was becoming a coach, people said, George, I feel like I can talk to you about anything. I basically feel safe talking to you. And I didn't know that that was a gift. So as I started hearing that and started learning about that, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, people appreciate working with me because we can have uncomfortable, challenging conversations that need to be had. And they have a sense that, like, I'm warm and open to this discussion. And it's true. I just am. I like this stuff. So as you are looking at where you break down, consider that it's not necessarily about pushing harder. You may need to learn how to listen more. So hustle culture says push harder. EQ culture says listen closer. And another thing to consider is I've talked about the work of how the body keeps the score. So if I'm just like my body, I referred to this earlier, but if I have unsaid things, if I have resentments and stuff that I haven't worked through personally, then that shows up in everyday interactions. So again, on a team, if there's unspoken communications, if there's like dormant conflict, that's going to have an impact. That will be a drain. And so whether it's you talking to somebody, getting clear with them, getting on the same page with them on your team, or whether it's you facilitating that on your team, helping people work through the conflict to come to a meaningful space of interacting with each other to be more effective, more efficient, then that's something to look at. If this is something that you're aware of right now, I'd love a question on it, or set up a one-to-one with me. I really enjoy these challenging conversations. And then I think what I'll close on is that if you are in a stuck point, it can simply be helpful to shift your body, to let yourself express. You might not do it at work, but go to the gym or go for a run or throw a mini temper tantrum in between meetings. If you're on Zoom, I do that. I will grab my pillow and just let the anxiety, let the rage come up, let my body process some of that brings more aliveness into me. I'm not trying to suppress the feelings. I'm being with the feelings. That gets me my motor up. It gets me ready to engage. In fact, I did that right before this Zoom meeting. I went in another direction. I didn't prepare the way that I knew would have been good to prepare, but I did take a minute to just let myself throw a temper tantrum so that I could use that energy to be focused here rather than trying to numb what I'm feeling, so that I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying my time instead of suppressing whatever it is that I'm feeling. Okay. So that's, I think what I want your takeaways to be today is, if you're in a culture that says you got to hustle, you got to push harder, consider saying, oh, I'm going to listen closer. Maybe now's not the time for me to push more. I'm going to play with listening closer. And then I'm going to pay attention to my body. My body keeps the score. So does my team. If I'm anxious, defensive, or unclear, my team's going to feel that. So I'm going to let myself be with what I'm feeling. I'm going to express that so I can be clear and clear myself out so I can be present, available for my team. And I'm going to encourage them from that space. Then I can encourage them to do the same. I can encourage them to say what they really think, to communicate more clearly. All right, everybody. Well, happy mid-July to everyone. And I will be back next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, bring them in next week or set up a time with me on my calendar. All right. Take care, everybody.